Welcome to the Sports Card Talk Show. Sports Card Talk Show with Kevin Anderson and Lorn Walker, the Skull Brothers.
Welcome to episode 110 of the Sports Card Talk Show. Got an interview lined up for today. Who's coming on today?
Today we have John Newman, the host of Sportscardnation and Hobbyquickhits.
Yes.
You can find him on any podcast platform.
Yeah. Great stuff. Been really enjoying.
Yeah,
he know him a little bit, and
he reached out to us 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think it's absolutely amazing how you think you kind of got a hold of everybody out there in the hobby, and and then somebody comes across you or vice versa, and you find a whole new world of hobby enthusiasts, and it's been really fun. I've learned about so many other things just by listening to, cramming a few episodes in the last couple of weeks on both of his deals. So
I know you enjoy the trivia. So before we dial them up, sorry, man, we're just going to do this real quick. All right. This is funny. In what year did... Goddamn years. I already was done.
Huh?
I must not have put that one down. In 2000, what former first overall NBA draft pick was involved in a salary cap circumvention scandal that ultimately cost the Timberwolves 3 first-round picks and a $3.5 million fine? That's easy.
Joe Smith.
Yeah. And this must be number 2, yeah. In January 2016, what playoff team visited Minnesota for the coldest game in team history?
Seattle Seahawks.
Yep. In 2008, who did the Timberwolves draft and then trade to Memphis in a deal to acquire the rights to Kevin Love? That's a little bit tougher. You might know it though.
I want to say O.J. Mayo.
Yep. What 2004 first-round pick played just 4 seasons for the Vikings before leukemia ended his career?
Kenichi Udeza.
Yep. Good job, man.
We had actually got a card, last week from, and I couldn't remember. I knew he had some kind. I thought it was leukemia, but I wasn't 100% sure, so I didn't want to say. And Kenichi was really good before that happened too.
Yeah,
I really
sad.
Yeah.
All right, man. Should we dial him up?
Yeah, let's do it. Ring-a-ling ding dong.
All right, we got John dialed up. How you doing today, John?
What's up, Kevin, Lorn? How are you?
We're doing great, John.
Yeah, I've been
hopefully healthy during these crazy times. Staying safe, staying healthy. That starts right there.
Yes, yeah, and you too.
Yeah. So far, so good, and hopefully we're maybe coming to the other side of the hill with this thing and can get back to some sort of normalcy, if you will. Although I got a feeling we're gonna have a new normal, so we'll see.
Yeah.
You kind of live out in ground zero out there in New York.
I do. I'm in Syracuse, so central New York, but I'm originally from New York City, Brooklyn to be exact, and that's the hardest hit city, NYC, and the numbers are trending better, but scary stuff, and it's one of those things where you just hope everyone's all right. I've been fortunate that no one that family or friends are all okay, and hope that continues to be as such. And same thing with everyone else. I mean, when something like this happens, you root for everyone. That's what you have to do. So
for sure, yeah.
Yep.
Do everything you can to stay safe, and hopefully others are doing that, and we'll get through this.
Yeah, it's real quick. I went into Walmart the other day and a few times, and we got to wear the mask and stuff. And I remember a time period where if you did that, you'd be looked at like you're going to rob the place. And now, now if you walk in without a mask, you're looked at funny and like
exactly.
It's like role reversal. And I just hope we get to a point again where we don't have to. But I'm really worried that we might, like, masks might be sort of the everyday going out apparel. And I hope we get past that. I think a vaccine is going to be the key to whether that's needed or not. I'm a handshake guys. If we were in the same room, I'd look you in the eye, shake your hand, and I was raised that way, and I hope we don't lose that. Some of those social things that I really like and was raised to do, and and I hope we don't lose some of that personability that we've always had, and now this happens. And there's worse things in the world than not shaking someone's hand, but at the same time, I'm a handshaker, so I hope we can get back to that someday.
Just a little something silly that I ran into. I have to wear a mask when I'm working, and I didn't realize how many times you would smile at somebody and nod, and I'm like, they're not seeing that smile.
Yeah.
So I have to make sure I'm verbalizing now, and saying hello, and I have to meet new people, and I'm, it's just like you said, not being able to handshake. It's different. Really.
Well, there's an advantage now too when you're behind a mask, and I obviously wear a mask at my job too. Is you can make bad faces and no one knows. So I mean, there's two sides. There's two sides to that coin.
Yeah.
But remember, they can still see your eyes. Sometimes your eyes.
Yeah. Don't give the eye roll. That's a good point. Well, John, we kind of gave you a little introduction on the intro, but why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself and what you do, and we just want to get the word out. Maybe people haven't ran into you yet, and you got great content, man. So let everybody know what you do.
Well, first off, thanks, guys. I do 4 podcasts. My big one, or my main one, is Sportscardnation. That comes out every week on Fridays. It's a guest-driven show. We have a guest pretty much every week, and like I say on that show, more of the guests, less of me's, the recipe for success. I started a couple months ago another show called Hobbyquickhits, which is the opposite of that. No guests, no ads, really, just one topic. I tackle it, give my opinion, and turn the lights off, and 10 to 20 minutes, definitely more consumable time-wise. I'm also part of a show that airs on Saturday morning, Hobby Hotline, which is a bunch of us podcasters. It's kind of, we call it like the Avengers. We all got together to form this call-in show on StreamYard like this, and people call in, and we call it everyone else's show because the content is really what we get asked to comment on, or whoever comes on and what they want to talk about. We have guest stars. Saturday the 23rd, Dr. Beckett will be on. I'll actually be on that show. We have a rotation of guests, and the last show I'm part of is a show called Roughing the Passer. During football season, we're on, me and Drew Herndon from Let Me Get That Potograph, a hobby show. We do that show on Sunday nights. It's live video, and we literally just talk about the week in football. There's no hobby. Sometimes a little hobby might leak in there, but it's really just sort of a football recap show. We got a fantasy element to it, a little DFS in there. We sometimes during the week we'll do a Thursday preview show where we'll make picks. And me and Drew I know you guys are big football fans. Me and Drew are huge football guys and hobbyists, and we just came up with, hey, let's do this show, and it's been very, very successful. And hopefully we get to do it again. We get some football again here this year, and I know it'll be a different sort of football, maybe no one in the stands, and I'm as a football guy and a former coach and what's going on, I'm not sure how that's going to work. Guys just as well as I do. You got guys up in the front trenches banging every play. I just don't know, pre-vaccine how this is all going to work, but I'm not an expert. I'll let the doctors and medical professionals sort that out, and league officials, and I just hope we get some football. Obviously, I know you guys feel the same way.
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's one of the seasons. It's the NFL season, and then it's the other season is the off season.
Well, like I always say, Lauren, in football there is no off season.
Yeah.
It's draft and free agency, and keep talking about it till camp opens up. So
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, too funny. So lots of great ways to find you, and we'll put links in the show description for sure. And we've been really enjoying the content for sure.
I'm so glad that you reached out and called or DM'd us on Instagram a few weeks ago, because you opened us up to a whole nother part of the hobby world that we had no idea about. You kind of get like stuck in your little clique, and you don't realize there's more of it out there than that.
There's nothing wrong, Lauren, with having like your own group. Those are the people who support you. But like you said, the hobbies, I mean, worldwide. It's I was going to say nationwide, but it's literally worldwide.
Oh,
and
sure.
You can't listen to every show or watch every YouTube video. Obviously, you got to sort out what you fond of and that sort of thing. And one thing I try to be, and I reached out because you guys are like this, is positivity. You have your shows. I won't mention names, although I'm not worried about mentioning names. But in fairness to them, I'm not going to come on. You got your shows that they're an hour of just, Panini sucks and Top sucks and Leaf sucks and this guy sucks and trimming skin. And I understand that, but and some of that may be based in truth be told. But if that's your only angle, there's plenty of negativity. I like one thing I try to do with my show is kind of to talk about both, but really, really emphasis the positive stuff, charitable stuff, people doing things for other people, and regardless of what you like, what you think about the major companies, they also do a lot of good works and charitable things too. And you gotta talk about both sides of the coin, to be fair. And I try to be, I consider myself a fair person. And so I report on both. And that, if you're going to be, I'm not a watchdog of the community or the hobby, but if I can kind of talk about something negative just to let someone who's listening know, hey, be wary of this without harping on it. I'm not a harper, or I try not to be. Then I'm sort of, I hate to say it like this, I'm sort of doing my job, at least letting, getting the word out there. Just be wary that this is going on and avoid those landmines, so to speak.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do we want to get into your history? Like, what's
how long's the show?
What I want to know what's your first memory of a sports card?
I remember I'm 47, and this happened 40 years ago. I was 7 years old, and I can't remember what I had for dinner last night, Lauren, but I can remember this from 40 years ago. So I was raised by my grandparents, which was awesome. Wouldn't change a thing. And I remember, and I grew up in New York City, so I was a big Yankee fan at the time, and the Mets. It was kind of like on the second favorite team. And my grandfather took me to the the corner store. We had to pick up a couple things, and we got up to the counter, and on the counter I didn't know I just saw a box of cards. It was 79 Topps baseball, and I saw the baseball player on the wrapper. And I remember asking my grandfather, what are these? There's baseball on there, in my 7-year-old mentality. And he said, oh, Johnny, those are baseball cards. You're inside that pack. There's gum and there's baseball cards of the players. And I was a baseball kid and a baseball fan, as much as you can be as a 7-year-old. And I'm like, can I have one? And he's like, I'll buy you one. And he bought it, gave it to me. And at the time, I was a big Reggie Jackson kid, New York City, Mr. October.
Oh, yeah.
And so I opened this pack. Literally, I'm still in the store. He paid for it. And like the fourth card in was Reggie Jackson.
Oh, no.
And I'll give it the rest is history. I was hooked. My friends had cards, and they would buy packs. I would buy packs, and they wanted the gum more than the cards, and I was the opposite. I wanted the cards more than the gum. So we would work out trades. Hey, I'll give you my gum. You give me all your Yankees, or you give me all your Mets, and so I wound up getting more cards, and they wound up getting more cavities. And now I did get cavities too, but I got my cavities other ways, Jolly Ranchers and other sugary treats, Fun Dips, and those sort of things. But I didn't get it as much as Topps gum as my friends did.
It's funny how you can remember that we're the same age, and I was about 4 years later than you, but I remember 1983 going to my aunt and uncle's house, and there was a Rexall drugstore. I can still picture where the card aisle was. I can still picture, hey, Dad, can I get a couple bucks for a few packs? Opening them. Dad, can I get a few more bucks?
Yep.
And back and forth from the drugstore. It's just funny how cards do that.
That stuff's awesome, man. I love those stories. I love that. That's how my hobby experience started. I wouldn't change anything. And you know this just as well as I do, Kevin. Back then there's no grading. We didn't know what these cards were going to have in value. We threw them around, carried them around, put them in our pockets.
Rubber
you know
band.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And where the hobby is now to them. But I'm glad at the same time, I'm glad I got in at that time and experienced kind of the hobby. I hate to say it like this, the hobby in its purest form. I didn't know that this was going to be worth this, or we're someday in the future, we would not really be able to touch our cards after we get them slabbed for grading. And I am a guy that grades card, like submits cards of grading. But I didn't know, you didn't know then where the hobby is going to take you. I'm glad I got to experience it at that level in the purest form before we got into all the financial and investing form that we know, obviously for sure now. I'm glad, in other words, I'm glad I was 7 in 1979 instead of 2014, because, and I don't want to paint with a broad brush. I think kids today have a different view of the hobby than we did as young kids back in the 70s and 80s and whatnot, even the 90s for that matter.
I like you said about being a kid, I actually watched somebody, they have their kid on their YouTube channel, and their kid is opening up a care package that they got, and the parent is like, be careful with those, be careful with those.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. When I was a kid, you pull a Reggie or whoever, Mike Schmidt, and you're grabbing a card like, look, and you're squeezing And now, like you said, that's the perfect analogy, just how the times have changed, guy. And I do this myself. Some people wear even medical gloves when they're opening stuff, and some of that too, the COVID-19 stuff. But even before that, it's a whole different genre. I still love it. I'm here 40 something years later. But definitely a different landscape for sure.
Well, you mentioned that you slab them and you can't ever touch them again. You don't even touch them before you get them slabbed.
Yeah, you're right. I got a whole show talking about my grading process and how I go about what goes in and what doesn't. And, that's a show in itself. But, I didn't know then that was going to be a thing. And, a matter of fact, when grading first came out, I didn't like it. I was actually against it. I thought it was a fad. I thought it was going to be here and gone, and it was dumb. I remember someone coming into my store with a graded card from Beckett, and he told me, hey, I just paid $15. They put a grade on this. I said, you should have gave me the $15. I would have told you what condition. I said, I remember having this guy. I said, man, are you an idiot? Why would you do that? Like you paid someone else to tell you what shape your card was in. That's silly. You're throwing money out. Here we are. That was like 1992. Here we are in 2020, and I've submitted. You know, I don't have them all because I've sold some and whatnot. But I figured this out the other day. I've submitted, and I know there's people submit way more. I'm not trying, but I've submitted over 3,600 cards for grading to all three major companies: PSA, Beckett, and SGC. So I'm fairly knowledgeable in that niche. But you know, if you would have told me as a kid that this would be something, I would have thought you're crazy.
We literally just went to the post office yesterday.
Yeah.
With our first submission ever.
Yep.
I'm gonna warn you. It gets addicting. And then once it's I don't know if you're like I'm a tattoo guy. Once you get one, you kind of want more. And that's how grading sort of. That's how grading sort of is. Once you and then you get your grades back and you do pretty good, or at least on the majority of them, you're like, oh, I got to do this again. And then it will change your perspective. Like Lorn said, now when you open something, you're like thinking, ooh, what's it look like? Can I submit that? That's going to be worthy of submission. And it's fun. You know? It's fun. I don't want to make it like it's the big bad new days. It's just, you know, technology evolves, we evolve, and that's where we're at here in 2020.
Just speaking of the grading, Lorn and I both had knots in our stomach preparing the cards, and it was not a fun experience by any stretch. But I want to say, going back to just the joy of collecting, I just did a side PC, which we'll be doing an episode, so I can't say what cards they were, but it was purely because I wanted the cards. I don't care about the value, and it was the most fun I've had collecting since I've gotten back in.
Yeah, and that's important. That's important.
Yeah. So, you touched a base on you had a brick and mortar store. I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit, because kind of far from me nowadays.
1992 to 1996, so 4 years. I had a partner, me and a friend of mine. You know, rented a store. We started. It was, you know, we actually had two names on the store. We couldn't. Here's a funny. So we couldn't come up with one name to buy. And the way we did our partnership, like we had cards that were store cards. Like if we bought 5 boxes to open and we split that bill, those were store inventory. When that card or sold, that was what we split that money. Then we had individual cards. Like if I bought a personal box, those are my cards. And if he bought so we kept two names. So it was John's box seat and Angelo's bottom of the ninth. His name was Angelo. And so if you saw like the storefront, it had like two names. It was one building, but two names. And I don't want to go into. I did a whole show on it. I did an episode called eBay, the Blessing and the Curse. And in 96, you know, in 96, I was 24. You know, the store is time consuming. It was fun. I wouldn't change a thing, but I had a lot of friends, you know, you're in your 20s. Hey, we're going to this concert. It's out of state. You want to go? And I'm like, I got to be at the store, man. I want to go. But I And then, you know, people were coming in the store. Hey, I want this card, but I can get that card on eBay for $10. You got it for $15. Will you do 10? And so the store started to, you know, compete not against another card store 2 miles away, but against this invisible store called eBay. And, you know, a lot of times you'd match prices, but, you know, it started happening more and more, and it became sort of difficult. And, you know, we still were doing all right, but sales dropped a little bit. And I was just missing out on being able to travel and doing certain other things. And then I looked into this eBay myself, this new thing called eBay at the time, and realized what it was. And then I thought, you know, I can list my inventory on eBay, and it's like being open 24 hours a day. I don't have to unlock this door and turn the lights on or answer the phone. You know, not that I minded doing those things, but the convenience is I could sell something on eBay, and I'm set up at a card show in Philadelphia, and I'm making 2 sales at the same time. Or I could be sleeping at 3 a.m. and someone bought a card. I wake up and I check the computer, and hey, you've got a sale. And now I don't have to be locked into the store, and I can travel and do things with my friends that I was missing out before, and still sort of make a living, make an income. And so, I talked to my friend Angelo. I told him, I was honest with him. I told him what I was thinking of doing. Obviously, my inventory, that was just all my cards, I would just take out of the store. And then we had that mutual inventory, and we just had to come up with a price. And he would buy that out and continue as a solo proprietor. And we came to that agreement. I left and did shows, traveled. I did like shows all around the Northeast, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York here. I think I even did one. I ventured out to Ohio, and just start listing on eBay. And I think back now to those times, guys, and it's sort of bittersweet, because at the same time it allowed me to do some of those extracurricular activities I had to keep saying no to, but it's also really hurt card shops, and I'm a card shop guy, and so I'd be lying if I didn't say I feel bad. If you look at all the card shops we had in the 90s, and you look at real card shops now, it's sad. It's sort of sad. And even the card shops we have now, they have to break to kind of to meet their overhead and do other different type of things. And I'm a card shop guy. I know people will say, eBay, I get everything I need, and there's nothing. I'm a card shop, card show guy. There's nothing like having that card in your hand, looking at it, finagling with the dealer. Hey, I'll get, you want $40, we take 35. I'll buy it right now. And having it in the hand, I love eBay. I use it. I'm not completely throwing it under the bus. But when you buy, and now with all the return policies, you should be okay. But when you buy something sight unseen, you got to cross your fingers and hope it's in decent shape when it gets to you, or it doesn't get ruined by the post office. And I mean, that's not common, but it has happened. I don't know. I like that. I'm a personable guy. I like those personal interactions. You're at someone's table, or they're at my table. I'm on both sides of the table. Hey, can you do this? I'm interested in this, and vice versa. As a consumer, hey, can I see that? Can I take a closer look? Having it in your hand, there's something to be said about that, and the socializing that goes along with it. And I think we lost it. That's the I called it the eBay, the blessing and the curse. The curse is we lost some of that interaction between individuals because of social media and the online world. I mean, I love it. I'm part of it, but there's 2 sides to that coin. That's the bad part.
I think for us, our age group growing up in the time that we did, just going to card shops when we were kids is just such great memories. I remember we'd go visit my grandfolks in Grand Forks, and they had a card shop a few blocks away. And my brother and we would go to that card shop and spend the whole day there as my parents and my grandparents visited, or my dad and my grandpa would go fishing sometimes down on the river. But me and Brian, my brother, we were so much into cards that we'd spend the day at the card shop, going through all their boxes. And they had games set like a Nerf basketball hoop that you could pay $1 to shoot, and they'd give you something for it or whatever. So I really miss the card.
I'm right there, with you. Just in Syracuse alone, when I had my card store, there was 13 of us, my store and 12 other ones.
Wow.
So I'm here, and that's like in the early 90s. Now in 2020, we have one card store in Syracuse. I'm going to be honest with you. I know him. I'm not a huge fan per se. There's some shady stuff, but he's in business, quite frankly. And I know this sounds harsh, but he's in business because he owns the building outright, and he doesn't have rent. His father.
That was what I was going to point out too.
His father, and I won't mention the name. And you could probably, someone wanted to do the research, you can figure it out. His father owned the building, and his father passed away, and he just left to his son, and so he has no other, utilities, but as far as mortgage and rent, that's already done and paid for. And if it wasn't the case, it probably would be obviously more difficult. I'd love to, my son who's 20, he wasn't around obviously yet when I had the store, but he knows about it. He's like, Dad, he's a little bit into cards, not on the same level as I am, but he's like, you ever want to open a store again? I maybe we could do it. And I'm like, so hard now, man. It's a different landscape, and it's unfortunate, but what are you going to do? You just got to adapt and thrive, as they say, and keep going. And like you said, look back at those memories and with fondness. You know what I mean? Don't forget those times.
When you mentioned that you left the brick and mortar to go onto eBay, that's the difference. Like whenever you're in that brick and mortar shop, you got all that overhead, and people complain about all the eBay fees as a seller, far less probably than that brick and mortar shop overhead was. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. We weren't too bad. We got in on a pretty good deal, but you still always have bills, Yep. And if you don't make sales, those bills don't go away. And, eBay allowed me to, if you didn't feel, with the store and me and my partner, Angelo there, we had days where we would both be there. We'd have a day where I had to be there. We'd have a day where he'd have to be there. But if it was my day, and I didn't feel good, I woke up, maybe I had a bad cold or bronchitis or whatever, and it was my day. And he, I'd call him, hey, man, did you make any plans? Yeah, I did. And, you have to go in, open the store, not feel real great. And, eBay allowed you to, you didn't have to be somewhere. You could be in your couch watching the Waltons, and, you get a notification on your computer, sale confirmed, and there's niceties about that. And then there's stuff you lose about that. You lose that personal, that social, and that interaction that you get with people on a face-to-face level. And I missed that aspect of it. And we can go on about the eBay fees, but that we can do another show.
I think what we'll do is we'll fast forward to your decision to start doing some of these shows, what prompted you to do the Sports Card Nation?
So I'll give you, this can get long, but I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. So with my real job, I had Fridays off, and I had a friend of mine who used to work for ESPN radio, and very religious person. And they were kind of telling him what to say and what not to say, and really cramping his style. And so he left ESPN and he started his own broadcast company. And he was doing shows every morning, Monday through Friday, 2 to 3 hour shows, sports, just sports, not hobby. And he knew I was heavily involved in the hobby, and he collected cards a little bit, just kind of on the fringe. And he would ask me about it and talk about it. And, well, hey, I got this. Is it worth anything? That sort of stuff. And then he asked me, like, John, you have Fridays off. Mm-hmm. Why don't you bring like 6 to 10 cards, your choice, something kind of current with what's going on in the hobby, and we'll call Collectible Corner, and it'll be an hour. And it was really kind of supposed to be like a one Friday type of thing. And so I went to his studio. I brought 6, 10 cards. Can't remember exactly. We did it. We wound up going for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. I don't know how that happened. I'm really sure not much. But so we wound up going like 2 hours, and he got a ton of feedback. Like, are you going to do this every Friday, Dan? I'm in. I loved it. And he called me up later that day, matter of fact, and said, you're off on Friday. Let's do this every Friday. And I said, listen, I'll do it every Friday. I can if I don't have something else that and so I wound up doing like 15 of them. And then my work schedule changed. My work said, we need you here. You don't have to be here all day, but we need you here definitely in the morning. And then in the mornings, when he does, it's a live show. And so there's no way I could ask him like to change that. So I had to tell him, hey, Dan, unfortunately, my work schedule changed. And my son actually went in and did 4 or 5 shows in place of me until he went away to college. And so he kind of filled in for me for 4 to 5 shows. And even before doing that show, guys, I had always toyed with maybe doing a hobby podcast. I was a big fan of Eric Norton and the Fat Packs podcast. And I sort of point to him as my inspiration to do a hobby podcast. And so when my work schedule was changing, I couldn't do Collectible Corner anymore. I kind of took that as a sign. Well, now maybe that's a sign to do not a live show, which it isn't, but do a podcast. And that's kind of where it was born from. And then the rest is kind of history. And that was in November of 2018. Started real small. If you listen, I mean, not to be, if you listen to some of those, we're on episode 77 now. If you listen to some of those early episodes of SCN, yikes. I mean, I cringe. I try not to. I like to delete them if they really are part of the history. Quite frankly, it's just where the show is now to then just even equipment upgrades that I made, sound quality. The first 4 or 5 episodes was just me, no guests, which that's not the recipe's having a guest on the show for me. And so when every once in a while, I'll listen to the early episodes and just, I always tell people if you listen to the newer stuff first before if someone listens to the early ones first, they're probably not going to listen to the current stuff. But, here we are, almost a year and a half later, and I've kind of expanded on the line and just where the show has come is just, I wouldn't believe it if you told me. And frankly, the credit goes to not so much me as the listeners out there who make the show what it is. It's what I always say. If no one listens, you might have a show, but you don't have a show. The listeners are the show, and the guests. We have an interview guest every week. They're the bulk of the show. So without the listeners and the guests, and then we're sponsors, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank them as well. They allow us to do a lot of our giveaways and things like that, and pay the bills, so to speak. Without those 3 things, the listeners, the guests, and the sponsors, we don't exist. And I'm very blessed. I'm very thankful where we are here 18 months later, whatever it's been. And if you would have told me, when I started SCN, guys, I went in, I did this on purpose. I made a point not to set any kind of expectations. Like we have to have this many listens or this many rotations, or I just kind of went in open-minded. And it's probably a good thing I did, because early going, it was a little bit of a rough takeoff. And if I set expectations, I might have not done anymore. And here we are, all this time later, and it's crazy, man. And some of the people, and you guys are coming on here soon, but some of the other people we've had on the show, from Dr. Beckett and Chris Carlin and Brian Gray, and just hobby, icons and heavyweights, Rich Klein. And I mean, and I hate naming people because every guest I have on is very important, and that's why I have them on. And but just some of the people I wouldn't have ever imagined being on the show have been on the show. And just if I really, the moments I sit and think about where the show is now, it's just it's mind-blowing to me.
I just wanted to pipe in real quick because it made me think of something, which I don't know that. I know when me and Kevin first started on the show and we started getting guests, one of the things that I would do is I'd watch, obviously their last few episodes, but I'd go back and I'd watch their first episodes, and it was inspiring to see how bad they were to start with too, and then you see how far they've come.
Well,
So
if you want to be inspired, listen to episode 1 through 4 of Sportscardnation.
Yeah. I mean,
your ears might. I can't promise. I can't guarantee your safety or your well. But it's just, and you make a great point there, Lorn. Is if you get better, the more you do anything, whether it's podcasting, your job, riding a bike, riding a motorcycle, whatever it is. The more you do something, you fine tune your craft, if you will. You learn what works, what doesn't. That was terrible. Don't do that again. That was pretty good. Do it, but even do it better next time. I get asked this question sometimes: is are you competing against other hobby podcasts? And I answered it the same way. And somebody might think I'm baloney throwing them when I say this, and I'm not. I just try to compete against myself. I played sports in high school, went on to become a varsity coach. I compete against myself. I want, when I was a player, yes, you're competing against other people and you want to beat them. And I get that aspect of it. I'm a competitive person, but I always wanted my next game to be better than this game. And so that's the approach I take with the show. I want my next show, no matter how good the show was or wasn't, I want the next show to be even better. Sometimes I think it happens. Sometimes maybe it doesn't. And everyone has will put their own opinion on that. But so when someone asks me, are you competing? There's 100 in just the verbal form, not what you guys are doing here with the audio and the video. Just in the verbal form, there's last check, I believe there was almost 100 hobby related podcasts. And then if you factor in the YouTube shows, what you guys do, and you guys do a great job, there's probably 5, maybe, I don't know, 1,000. And so you can't you can't compete. I always said, if you're worried too much about everyone else, you lose sight of what you're doing and how to do a better job. So my focus has always been, and I listen to other shows and watch other shows like what you guys do and take inspiration from that. Don't get me wrong. But when it comes down to producing and making my show, I'm just trying to be better than I was last week. I don't know if it happens every time, but it isn't for lack of effort. I'll just say that much.
Well, John, we want to be respectful of your time, and we really appreciate you coming on and sharing. And we're going to have you back because we didn't touch on hardly as much as we really want to know.
When you're old like me, you can't do everything in one.
No.
So yeah, we'll have to definitely have you back on for another episode. If you want to hang on for 1 second, we will bring this episode to a close. And then we'll just chat for 1 more minute afterwards here. So that's going to bring episode 110.
Yeah. And I want to say this on the air to you guys.
Okay.
Which is almost how old I am.
I think you cut out there for a second.
So I just wanted to say, you hear me?
Yep, we hear you.
I just wanted to thank you guys for having me on, man. This was a pleasure. I had a lot of fun. Like you said, I'd love to come back. I know you guys are going to come on my show. I'm going to turn the tables on you guys and whatnot. And I appreciate I always say this to people who create content. People who don't, and I'm not saying this in the, but someone who just listens to programs or watches programs doesn't realize all the work and research and behind the scenes stuff. You hear something for an hour and you think, well, that just took an hour of their time, and you don't realize that 1 hour show was probably 5 hours to really produce. And as someone in that industry, if you will, I just want to commend you guys for what you're doing. It's awesome. Keep doing it. And I love anytime you want me back. Just let me know, and you guys will be on my show very soon here, and it'll be fun.
Oh, we appreciate that.
Thanks,
yeah.
John. Thanks. And
Yeah.
same back
You're
to
welcome.
you.
Yeah, we know. We
we
know what
know.
it takes. We know what it takes, and we certainly.
Not everyone does. Not everyone does. So I always try to make a point, not to pat ourselves on the back so much, but it's just to let people know.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I had someone who was asking me a lot of podcast questions. They were thinking of doing it, and I won't mention them. The protector, they wound up doing it, and when I was talking to them, they're like, it doesn't sound. It doesn't sound difficult, and they got into it. And they recently messaged me and said, "Man, there's a lot of. I didn't realize all the work and stuff that goes into this." Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I think the thing is that it is a lot of work, but it's a lot of work that we love to do.
Labor of love. I say it on my show all the time. Labor of love. And the minute if we lose that, that's where we really got to think about what we're doing.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, once again, we really appreciate you coming on. We'll bring it to a close real quick, and then we'll talk for another minute. This is episode 110 of the Sports Card Talk Show with John at sportscardnation. We'll put some links in the description. Go find them. Great, great content.
Thank you, guys.
School Brothers out.